Okay, we're good. Heather, you're good? All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome this evening. I'm Jeff Murphy. I'm your Building and Planning Administrator. This is the last in our series of topic/community meetings for the comprehensive plan for the public input for this session. After tonight, we're going to be meeting with the different town advisory committees. Tonight's meeting is on farmland preservation. And with us this evening is Bob White from AKRF. He is the president of AKRF. So Bob, we have a PowerPoint presentation. It'll take about a half hour, and then we're going to open up to the public, both live and the people on Zoom. So Bob, take it away.
Take it away. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having us on behalf of our firms. It's AKRF and LKMA together working on this project. And always fun to do a master plan and do a master plan update. I'm here tonight with Steve Holly, who's also with AKRF, who, if you have comments or questions, and we have forms to fill out, Steve can direct you with those. And Lorianne DeFalco is online.
And also, I'd like to announce that Supervisor Aguiar is also with us on Zoom this evening, so she'll be part of the meeting via Zoom.
Great. So just briefly, next slide, please. Perfect. So what we want to do tonight is give you an overview of where we are at with the project on the master plan update. A summary of the issues that came out of our work sessions with community and with topic groups back in the fall of last year, fall September through December. Provide you an overview, summary of the goals that we heard were important and critical as it relates to farmland preservation and agricultural economy. And talk a bit about the next steps. Next slide, please. This is our timeline graphic. This is also on the town website. Kind of shows you, where we are in this process. 40% of the way, but going through the initial outreach phase, and what we have done towards the end of last year was that outreach I had talked about, and we've developed a summary of the public outreach and the issues that we heard, and that document is also available on the project website and on the town website. Some of the products we've completed so far are land use and hamlet maps, an not updated, but a digitized version of this town zoning map, which I think will really help the town to more effectively work with the current zoning. We've completed our outreach plan, and we constantly maintain and update our CAC list. We did a public survey as part of our outreach, and that was comprised of outreach forms, a survey that was online with the town website, and something called Social Pinpoint, where you could geographically place comments for us, and that was available through the third week in January. We took the comments we received, we summarized those into this compendium of information that we received from the town. We also met with county and other representatives, Suffolk County DPW, Suffolk County Planning as part of our outreach work to date. And you can find that all online. Next slide, please. Oh, back one. Yeah, it's okay. This graphic is our sort of simplified way of showing you how this planning process works. In terms of the time, it matches up with the timeline I was just talking about, where we start with community input. The first sort of wheel of information there is what we did in the 2021, the last quarter of 2021. And here we are in 2022. We're in that second wheel where we're here to go through what we think are the goals for the plan, and to get your input on maybe to refine them or hear additional goals that you would like to see. Next slide, please. We started each of these presentations with a vision statement from the 2003 plan, because this is an update. So what we want to do is sort of, this is the baseline from almost 20 years ago. But then, as now, the importance of agriculture to Riverhead in so many ways, both as economically and historically and culturally, is paramount. Just to read it just to read through it, Riverhead's agriculture history will play a leading role in the town's economy and shape the town's character and way of life. The town will work with farmers and landowners to support farm businesses and promote farmland preservation, and the town will strive to do so in a manner that respects private property rights, protects landowner equity, and ensures flexibility and choice in the use of farm property. We think that vision statement lives on today, and I think with many of these vision statements from the 2003 plan, what we want to do more of in 2022 is drill down on them and take them to the next level. The goals that were identified, this might be a little hard for you all to see, but we do have handouts, and hopefully they're a little easier to read. But I'll walk you through them. First up, protect the agricultural land base and maintain the equity value for landowners. Foster the agricultural economy. It's one thing to have preservation, but you also need to have the economy to support the ongoing continuation and viability of farming. Maintain the rural character and heritage of Riverhead. So I think we all know and recognize that farming, both as an economic input, it also has a lot of history, hundreds of years of history in Riverhead. Reduce the amount of development in areas where agricultural activity is currently concentrated, and I think that's where the transfer of development rights concept evolved. Target farmland preservation to Riverhead's agricultural green belt, and it's between Sound Avenue, Route 25, Middle Road, and Route 25 at Jamesport. This ultimately shows up in the mapping. Implement a transfer of the development rights program to reduce pressure on agricultural zones. Use public funding to purchase development rights as another mechanism to preserve and protect farmland, and to create an agricultural greenbelt. Promote Riverhead's agricultural industry and products. As I've said, you can't just preserve farmland, you need to have the economy that goes with it. Reduce the potential for golf course development. That was an issue at the time. Perhaps in terms of these issues, I'm not sure golfing is as much a pressure on land use in 2022 as it was in 2003. But we're also thinking ahead for the next 20 years. So if it's not golfing, perhaps it's some other pressure. And protect the family farm. So I think that last goal pretty much sums it up. Just to recap a bit on what our research found in the issues and opportunities phase as it relates to the combination of agriculture, farmland, and historic preservation, is that the agricultural industry, and what we did was we took the input that we got, we summarized it into these bullet points, that the agricultural industry is an important employment generator in the town. Farmland preservation is a priority. There's a need to update, and related to the preservation of farmland, there's a need to update the town's TDR program so that it supports that preservation. Some of the evolution of farming and the farm economy in the past 20 years since the last plan is agri-entertainment as an important economic driver. recognizing that, there are peaks of activity that we would need to address, particularly with respect to traffic and noise effects in peak seasons. Not that it's a year-round effect. Emerging issues and trends, changes in agrivoltaics, and also recreational cannabis as part of an economy and an allowable use. And the scenic corridors that are so vital to the tourism industry that goes along with farming. Next slide, please. Just to maybe take a step back, we did our survey. We had hundreds of responses, and we asked in the survey for individuals and folks to let us know what the priority issues are in this master plan update. And at the top of the list was farmland and open space preservation, where 70% of the respondees put that at the top of their concerns, or what they thought the master plan update should address. Just to underscore the importance. This is just a pie chart of the agricultural economy locally. As a direct employment, it's about 4% of the town's direct employment. There's certainly more people in a retail establishment than there might be in a farm of commensurate acreage. But it's a really critical and unique type of employment. It's an important generator in Aquabog, Bating Howell, Jamesport, and Northville. And I would also underscore it's not just the direct employment of employees who work in the farming industry, but the related support industries and the industries that hospitality as one that feed off of a rural character. I guess I jumped ahead. So that was the last bullet. So there's the additional direct and indirect economic benefits that are derived from having a wonderful rural setting and a mix of uses. Next slide, please. So Riverhead, in terms of Suffolk County communities, has a really unique agricultural character and importance in the county. There's approximately 15,000 acres of agricultural land, and that's one of our early products was to digitize and create a GIS land use map for the town. So using the land codes that go along with that GIS based system, it's and the codes that go along with each of these types of land uses. It's about 15,000 acres of agricultural land in the town. Of those, approximately 8,900 or 9,000 is in the agricultural protection zone. 300 or so acres have been preserved through the transfer of development rights program, which is a relatively small number, given that the program has been around for a while, and I guess we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And about 6,400 acres have been preserved through the county's purchase of development rights program. So those are the metrics of the current farm uses and the protection program. This, I would have to guide you to the handout, I think, for this one, but this is really just a more detailed breakdown of the lands and acreage by zoning district. Probably a little more information here than you might need, but it just gives you each of the zoning districts in which farmland or agricultural lands currently exist. And as you might expect, at the top of the list is the Agricultural Protection District, followed by Residence B, 80 and A80 zones. Next map, next slide, please. So these colors, they show up pretty well. This is the town's sending and receiving areas map, the zoning map. In terms of, the green being the areas of active farming in the sending areas, or the designated farming areas, and the yellow. So there's two being the receiving areas. So there's two types of receiving areas. One up on the north side of Sound Avenue, and the other along County Road 58 and between the Central Business District in downtown Riverhead and 58. Next slide, please. Some other input that we got as part of the survey. We asked what uses and activities do residents of the town and the surrounding community, because the survey was open to others, what they thought were important supports to the agricultural economy. And one of those was, or in no particular order, but they expanding farm-to-table and healthy food programs, specialty crop businesses, and I think that's a growing sub-economy in the agricultural economy, and improved product distribution. So it's great to have the products, but you got to get them to a market, and you got to be open to you have to have the transportation systems that allow you to distribute product. But approximately 25 or 27% of the respondents felt that expanding agricultural tourism and events were not needed. So we're pointing that out as just another factor in the planning process. The goal statement that, next slide, please. I should say draft. Oh, it does say draft. Good. The goal statement that we're formulating for this comprehensive plan update echoes the 2003 plan and builds upon that. So I'll just quickly go through what those bulleted points are. Prioritize farmland preservation and support for the agricultural economy. Provide for the flexibility of uses that support the business of farming. Recognizing what we heard as comments to expand farm-to-table and healthy food options, and that's a growing need nationally and regionally. Encourage specialty crop businesses, facilitate improved product distribution, support agritourism, and address, it's not just supporting the tourism, but taking into account what else we heard to address and can figure out ways to deal with the effects of noise and traffic, so that it's to the betterment of everyone. And strengthen the scenic corridor requirements, because the scenic in conjunction with the farm and the history are interconnected. And to update, and these were comments we heard from the farm community, update the town's transferred the rights program to reflect the current economics and the valuations of property. As part of the objective or goal of prioritizing farmland and open space preservation, is to allow, we think, support could come in the form of a solar program or plan that fits into the rural character and is complementary to farmland preservation as a complementary economically. Develop conservation opportunity subdivisions that allow clustering while preserving farmland. Working with the Suffolk County and the not-for-profit organizations such as the Peconic Land Trust to assist farmers who want to preserve their property and are looking for a mechanism to do that. The expanded use of the Planned Development District as a way of clustering and coming up with combining growth with, development with farmland preservation, community preservation fund use to acquire and protect properties, the TDR program, existing and growth potential for the future, an ordinance that requires purchased farmland to remain as farmland so that it remains active as a contributing activity, and continue to pursue New York State agricultural markets and state funding for open space and farmland advancement and preservation. Next slide, please. Just to recap and give a little background and the status of the TDR program through the end of last year, when our data collection through December of last year. The program's been in effect for almost 20 years. As I said earlier, it's not a huge amount of acres that have been preserved through the TDR program. 163 residential credits have been redeemed, and while 45% of the agricultural lands have been preserved, the majority of that was not through the TDR program. Next slide, please. What we heard from the agricultural community as part of our outreach was some of the economics of the program and how to make it more viable. This is just a breakdown of what the existing mechanism is. So a transfer of development right is a dwelling unit. A transfer of development right is approximately 1,500 square feet of commercial use. And one TDR equals about $65,000 a unit. The questions that have arisen as part of our work is, what are the markets and what are the receiving areas that make this effective? And the other question is there a market for different uses that should be allowed with TDR? And we've just listed some possibilities, which might include solar, assisted living, or different types of design standards that would allow greater density. It says taller, they don't have to be taller, but allows greater density of residential use. Providing flexibility in the use of protected agricultural lands. So once the land is protected, as I said, it needs to be productive and utilized. So it's expanding the range of allowable uses on farmland to reflect the growth and changes in the agricultural technology, and to underscore what was said earlier, agrivoltaics. We talked about and we heard about, and this is this came out of changes in laws last year about recreational cannabis and how that may be part of an agricultural economy. And we've put the caveats in here because there are lighting and there's security and traffic issues associated with that. And there's also lighting. Some of these facilities have a more intensive light system. I don't know if you've seen them, but there can be some pretty high density light systems used to maintain the growing over a longer day. The other issue that came up was we have workers and they come in seasonally. Where do they live? So it's looking also at worker opportunities for housing workers that support and work within the farms. And one other opportunity that was identified was hops to pint farming. I guess that's farm to table. This was brought to us as hops to pint. I guess a twist on farm to table, but same concept. It sounds interesting. Next slide, please. Again, building on the culture nationally in terms of people in healthy eating came up early on in our discussions on the master plan update. What could be better than eating locally and food that is grown locally. So we think that coordinating with the bid to the downtown bids to expand farmers markets and the opportunity to move product and have a greater distribution would be great both for the businesses locally and for the farmers as well. Work with the Chamber of Commerce to support that type of farm-to-table restaurant opportunity. And I know you do this, but market or maybe expand marketing for Riverhead's agricultural heritage, its history, and its identity as an agricultural community. And the summary statement: farmland preservation is food security. So I think this was derived from pandemic times and people really being kind of stuck at home or not being able to travel as much, and the benefits of being able to sort of eat where you live, if you will, is we're more understood. Next slide, please. Recreational cannabis. There's ongoing legislation on how this is going to be implemented, given the economic possibilities, but also the social. It's a new type of use, and I think with any new type of use, there's pluses and minuses. So I think those pluses and minuses have to be worked out and translated into what is essentially a new zoning use, a new type of use, and taking into account what I mentioned earlier: the lighting, security, traffic issues, safety, and it is a regulated. It's a regulated use, not unlike a bar. So taking into account surrounding uses, be they community facilities, schools, and making sure there's appropriate distances between them. And as I mentioned earlier, I guess we've repeated it here, the hops and farm to pint brew type activities could be a new opportunity locally as well. Another overarching sort of draft goal to facilitate retail sales and improve product distribution, to allow farmers and growers to market their products more directly to consumers, which supports the local economy. You see, you have some wonderful farm stands, and how do we make this is a goal that sort of identifies the support for that, and we heard that sometimes as farm stands become more popular, that there might be some delay, or they're looked at a little more closely in terms of a site plan review or some other review. So we think expediting those reviews, maybe coming up with some standards that can facilitate the review and approval process, sounds like it would be helpful to the farm community. And the town's continued sponsorship of the farmers market in Riverhead. Next slide, please. Agritourism, or combination of agritourism and agritainment. There's a couple of industries going on. One is, but they complement each other. Maybe a definition needs to be developed that is carried over into the town code, so that there's a better description of what these mean, and how they fit into the current and/or proposed zoning districts. Build upon established agricultural business tourism. Again, the roadside stands, pick your own crops, farm tours. These are all support mechanisms and ways to have the farm economy evolve and be productive, with the understanding that there might be some coincident changes in zoning definitions, and as it relates to the farm stand review as well, and supporting agritourism, while again making sure when we look at the definitions and the locations and the types of uses, and once they are defined, that we have taken into consideration the effects that we've heard from some of the community members. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier, and I think there's an overlap here between scenery and scenic corridors and historic preservation, because there's a lot of historic buildings that are interrelated with the scenic corridors, to strengthen the rural character zoning as it relates to the protection of county roads and town roads. So what we're looking at here is how do these facilities fit in, but they don't detract from the scenic corridor or the scenic roads. And one of the issues that came up, and I think that was addressed, is under evaluation, is the street parking along Sound Avenue. It's I guess to summarize, it's sort of success has sometimes success leads to some necessary changes in management and operation, especially in communities that are where travel is so dependent on vehicles. But some of the resolution of that, and we talked a bit on the transportation side yesterday, was how alternative modes of transportation, buses or jitneys and other vehicle types could be used to reduce single occupancy vehicle and some of the traffic congestion that evolves from successful businesses. Next slide, please. Some of the thoughts that we're kicking around or up for discussion are to expand the sending districts and also work with the town to add some receiving districts so that there's more of an exchange permitted that would facilitate preservation of farmland and to allow certain solar of certain types in conjunction with the TDR program. And we're looking at changes or considering changes, and we have to talk more to the town about this, in terms of changing the credit ratios so that there's more of an economic trade-off to meet the farm economy and the need to preserve land with the need to have a return on property. We did have this map. It might be hard for you to see, but it's in your handout. It sort of identifies some new sending districts and some new receiving districts. I think there's some real opportunities near the LIE there, County Road 58, and along that corridor where there's some underutilized properties that have again, linking this back to last night's transportation conversation, recognizing that we don't want to overburden Route 58, but there are mechanisms to improve traffic flow and signalization, that there are opportunities to provide those as receiving areas, and there's a number of, while it's a very viable corridor, there are also a number of opportunities that are identified on this map in terms of redevelopment choices or locations. The next slide, we had input last year, and we've consolidated it here from the Agricultural Advisory Committee and the TDR Subcommittee that we are just summarizing here, and will be part of and continue to be evaluated as part of the plan development. Just for those who are unfamiliar, the Agriculture Advisory Committee advises the town board on legislative and regulatory issues related to agriculture. There's a cap on the residential preservation credits, and it was recommended that, residential is one of the greatest, or one of the redevelopment opportunities, I suppose, just in Riverhead, but also on Long Island, is a strong residential market. How do you use that to facilitate farmland preservation? And that's what the second bullet is building upon. And as part of that, adding some new receiving districts to provide additional geographic opportunities, some changes in special permitting and zoning that are related to facilitating the opportunity for credits and redemption of credits as a way of preserving farmland. Looks like I went a little long, but that concludes our presentation. I'll turn it over to Jeff. I think he.
Yep. And ask Larry to turn up the lights.
Yep.
I'm going to ask Al Krupski, County Legislator, to come to the podium. Al has been spearheading a large amount of the farmland preservation through the PDR program from the county, and can't underestimate the value of what Al has done for the whole eastern end of Long Island for farmland preservation. So Al, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And I appreciate the efforts that you're making and the consultants are making here. And I really want to thank the town of Riverhead for making this effort, because I think it's, you laid out there how important farmland preservation is. You know, you've got this, he showed 70% of the population's in favor of land preservation. It's easy to understand why. Less pressure on school districts, less pressure on public safety, obviously less traffic, and you've got this watershed that adds to the aquifer most of the year. That's all winter, the farmland's dormant. So it's really, and then you put into the real economic value of the farm businesses, and then you add that to the economic value of why people come out here. And if you look at all the redistricting that's going on in the county and in the state, you see that the east end of Long Island added an awful lot of people during the pandemic, and then you wonder why, and a lot of it has to do with the successful land preservation efforts. People want to be here because it's nice. So I just want to thank you for those efforts. Land preservation is simple. You need a funding source, and you need the mechanics in the government to handle that, and then you need a willing seller. So land preservation is really complicated because you need a funding source, and you need the mechanics in government, and you need a willing seller. So it's something that you just have to work on all the time. The willing seller is of course always critical. It has to be worth their while. I'm glad you mentioned the conservation subdivision there. That's been a tool that's very helpful because it does preserve the landowner's equity, at the same time preserving 75 to 80% of the farmland. So keep up with this good work. I see you've got a good, pretty ambitious schedule, so you can press forward with that. And I'm glad you have a good crowd of people here, because it is a big part of not only Riverhead's future, but the whole East End is this kind of discussion, this kind of effort. So thank you.
Thank you, Al. There are two other parts.
Can I just say one thing?
Oh, sure, Yvette.
Hi, Al, thank you so much for appearing. I know that this is something, a charge that you've been taking for many years, and your input is very important in this regard.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your efforts on this on behalf. I know we had the conversation the other day about this, and so I appreciate all the support and effort. It's got to be a team effort at different levels of government to get this accomplished, and it doesn't happen overnight. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely, and this has been a long time coming. I know there was an attempt, I didn't think it was too successful, and I charge our planner to ensure that the TRD plan is in place and put into the comprehensive plan. It needs to be there, it's a long time coming, and you have to, town of Riverhead support.
That's good, it's in his capable hands, so, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there are two other parts to keep making sure that farmland, Larry would like us to go back to with the Zoom on the screen. I have a hard time lip reading with our TV crew in the background, so. There are two other parts, Al, for farmland preservation, and it's not just land preservation, one is preservation of the farmers. So often I see the farming community aging, and we need to bring in the younger people into the farming production, and so that farmland production continues. It's not just fallow farmland. We want to see crop production, and that requires some ingenuity. It requires some financing with some help of other organizations such as Peconic Land Trust. They are absolutely critical towards estate planning and making sure that the farmer's land stays equitable, but also at the same time that we have people actually farming the property. The other problem that we're facing right now, and Al can really understands this, is we got severe inflation and cost increases going on right now. I heard that, for example, the cost of fertilizer has gone up fourfold. That cuts directly into the bottom line for the farmers, and how do they make that up? And I'm not sure how to address that, and that's what we need to hear back from the farmers. So what I'd like to do now is turn the meeting over to the people live in the audience in Town Hall, and then after that, we're going to turn it over to people in the virtual land. So anybody who would like to come to the podium, speak, please come to the podium so that you're recorded. You cannot be recorded sitting at your chair. Please come up, identify yourself and your hamlet. I see Sid Bale walking up.
Sid Bale, Wading River. I have a question about the chart, the one that is chart 11 on page 6. Would it be possible or useful for AKRF to come up with a chart that would include the number of development rights intact in each zoning district? Okay.
Basically, that'd be a build-out analysis of the remaining land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I wondered about this one in that same chart. At the very bottom, other. Where is other?
It's a good question.
Is it here?
There's
No.
these, it always comes up in sort of GIS outputs that, there's mystery codes and things like that.
Okay.
What could other be? It could be, non-government owned land that
Okay.
doesn't have or it doesn't have a code that goes with
Okay.
it, a tax code. A lot of this is predicated or based on tax codes, so.
Okay.
So, yeah, but it's not that, it's 160 of the total acres, but yeah.
You
think
talked
that's-
about improving the TDR program make it more, I guess, financially beneficial for the farmers. Is there any thought about requiring TDRs from developers that they must purchase a TDR in order to do certain types of projects?
On the receiving.
That's what a TDR program would do. But we're right now, it's more of a carrot approach, that you would get more development.
Right.
If you get the, for example, Lee Browning with his hotel, he brought in, I think, over 40 development rights to expand his hotel.
Right. Is it fair to say that the impression I've gotten from the meeting and listening to people from the farm community is that they don't think the TDR program has worked in Riverhead? Are there examples on Long Island of a workable TDR program?
On Long Island?
Or are they all crappy?
I would not characterize as ours being crappy. I would characterize as being not efficient, and it needs to be, the opportunities need to be expanded. So I wouldn't characterize as being crappy.
And
In progress.
in progress.
In progress.
All right, okay.
But were you saying on the receiving end to make it mandatory? I think that's what I was hearing.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
With the proposed changes, you're not contemplating sending TDRs across school district boundaries, are you?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Anybody else in the audience would like to come up? Heather, is there anybody in the virtual land? If anybody's, oh, I'm sorry, please come up. We have a couple more people in the audience that want to speak, and then if you are in the virtual land, if you want to speak, hit the chat button, that's the hand icon, that will let us know that you would like to speak. Welcome, sir, and just identify yourself and your hamlet.
Kareem Masood, Aquabog. I'm a second-generation winemaker. My family owns and operates Pomanock Vineyards and Palmer Vineyards in Aquabog at Jamesport. I'm also president of Long Island Wine Country, and I just wanted to come up and speak and say, I can enthusiastically support what I'm seeing, and farmland preservation has been important, personal, mission for me. I served on the Farmland Preservation Committee for the town of Riverhead for several years. And so I'm excited to see that there's such support behind that. So I just adding my voice to that too. But I also want to take this opportunity in time, because that's what this is. We're looking back, but we're also looking forward. And you very much directly asked for people's vision and goals and that sort of thing. So I want to share with you a little bit about some of the things we're thinking about at Long Island Wine Country, our organization that represents most of the wineries on eastern Long Island. And so one of the visions we have is to really celebrate not just our wines, but the region and its heritage, and how the whole ag community can be celebrated in a way that brings everyone together, where we have, and you very much pointed it out in some of your slides, and the farm to table type of concepts. But the point I'm getting towards is we're sort of in the middle of trying to think through how we can get a Long Island wine and food campaign off the ground, where we're sort of on an ongoing basis celebrating these sort of things, but also having them culminate annually in some kind of Long Island Wine and Food Month and a Long Island Wine and Food Festival, that sort of thing, not unlike you see in other parts of the country. But I just wanted to put that out there and sort of like begin to plant a seed, no pun intended, in people's minds about how I think we could and should sort of make Riverhead and eastern Long Island not just a place to visit because it's beautiful, and not just because you want to visit the farms and the wineries, but also to pull in, for example, the restaurants and the hospitality industry to get on board with the same message, the same way that they've done so in places like Napa and Sonoma. To be very blunt and direct, there are a lot of restaurants, you go in there and their support for Long Island wine and agricultural products is abysmal. There are others who are terrific. We have some great supporters, some fantastic supporters, so I don't want to make it sound like there's no support. There are some who get it, but there are many who don't, and we need those who aren't there to get the message and to get on board. There are things that happen here that blow my mind. Why are there Canadian potatoes here when the best potatoes are from Long Island? Why are people buying wine from all over the world when there's wine grown in your own backyard? It's totally illogical, nonsensical, and in a day and age where people care about sustainability and carbon footprints, it's insane. And so to get, I think it sounds like from what I've heard so far that there is broad support for that sort of thing, and I'm just sort of adding my voice to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. I think the words economic multiplier should go hand in hand with agriculture because the two are just so tied together in terms of if you have active farmland, it touches so many different other industries and touches so many people's lives that people it's not that obvious to them, but it touches so many other people economically. That should not go under, that should be definitely noted. I see Rob Carpenter standing there. Rob, definitely going to call on you. You know it. Okay.
Thank you. Rob Carpenter, Director of Long Island Farm Bureau. And I suppose I should disclose that I'm a sitting member on the comp plan, for what it's worth. There's actually two things I'd like to talk about, and I might have other comments later, but the first one being when we talk about scenic corridor, I think that it's very important to include the farmers in any development of any type of plan. Farmers use their land based upon the need and what the land is available for.
Right.
And if you're going to come up with a plan to say, okay, Farmer Joe, you need to put your barn 800 feet or 1,000 feet off of the road, or any of your buildings, the cost to run electric utilities and other things could be very damaging and very cost prohibitive to a farmer. Farmers are very practical, very well thought out people, and they do things for a specific reason, not just because they want to, keep the town open. So that needs to be a very considered point in your discussion going forward when you talk about scenic and rural corridors. The other thing that I would request specifically of the consultants is, on the first two meetings, there were two proposals that will severely impact the farm community. And I think that this is the place to also discuss those. And I would ask if the consultant could talk about the potential Sound Avenue corridor and the widening of the road, which will impact many of the folks in the room plus others, if that is going to happen. And the second thing is also, I saw a mention of a potential change in the farm stand code. And I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit better, specifically with, and I don't know if it's a proposed requirement or just a thought process, that farmers sell local products, not meaning local produce, but locally manufactured products, and if there was going to be restrictions on that. I think those two things need to be discussed here tonight in greater detail.
Okay.
So-
Just regarding Sound Avenue, on May 18th at the town board meeting at 6 o'clock, there is a public hearing on whether or not parking should be prohibited on all or a portion of Sound Avenue. So I think that's a good opportunity to have that discussion with the town board, and that's where that discussion should take place.
Okay.
The farm stand code amendment, has that come through Ag Advisory and Farmland?
Well, that's what I'm asking you,
Okay.
because it was part of the consultant's presentation. I think it was either at the first or the second meeting, and the rain brought it up. So that needs to be discussed here, if that's okay.
Yeah, one of the things that we were talking about, for example, is the traffic congestion on Sound Avenue is about, I want defining curb cut and access into and out of farm stands rather than having open-ended. Is that what you're referring to?
No, it was a specific potential change to say what a farm stand could or could not sell.
Yeah, the products,
Oh, local.
Yeah. I
What
think-
is local?
yeah. I don't, we can talk more about it, but I don't think, I don't think,
These are the folks that are going to want to know, so.
I think that's beyond the zoning requirement.
Because Ag and Markets defines, because we had this discussion a year or two, my timing is not great, Rob, what is regional, what is local, and it was like a 300-mile radius.
Correct.
That's off the island, that could be, it's a different state. But that's what the is defined by, and I forget where the definition came from, and that's in our code, so.
And that is correct, and I just want to make sure that whatever is talked about in the plan is brought forth before the farmers so that they
Yeah.
have a better understanding.
And I think certain things such as the new local farm market, that, more of that is needed to help really sell the local products and the farm to table, you know, the Riverhead to, I mean, fresh produce, we heard about potatoes. Why are we, why are we getting Canadian potatoes? So we got a glut of potatoes that, and I wouldn't buy anything other than local.
Sure.
Or local apples, for that matter, or the peaches. The Lillians proved me wrong about, I thought Georgia peaches were the best until I tried one of his, so. Local produce is absolutely essential, and by local, I mean what we're growing in Riverhead.
I understand everything you're saying, but I think just a better explanation about the proposal is in order.
Yeah, we're definitely not gonna supersede whatever the state is, and we'll definitely have that conversation with the farmers. Just so everybody knows, this is not the last that you are gonna get to have a chance to have a sit down with the consultants and myself. The next step after this, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, we're gonna be meeting with the different advisory committees, and we're gonna consolidate farmland preservation with ag advisory and the TDR committee as one meeting. We're gonna have all these discussion much more one-on-one, so to speak. So that would be happening hopefully within the next month or so.
Sure.
And it sounds on that topic, we'll need to, drill down a little bit more on what you brought up. I would say in terms of Sound Avenue,
Thank you.
it's not the intent to widen it with the, it's to improve intersection and turning movements, not to change the corridor as a travel corridor or a scenic corridor. So,
Okay, we're gonna have Tapi, you can come up next, and then I know that we have people in the waiting room on virtual that we also, and then Rob Skinner. Or Tapi, you go first, and then Robert, if you could we'll just get some people from the virtual line to come in too.
They can go in front of me, that's fine.
Okay, great, thank you. Tapi, go ahead.
Good evening, Talkie Church and Calverton Civic. So I'm going to refer to what Rob Carpenter just mentioned and also what Sid Bale touched on. I'm looking at the two maps that you've got on page 12 and page 25, or slide 25 and slide 12. And I see there does look like there's quite a bit of more receiving areas towards our downtown. What's a little counterintuitive is the receiving area north of Sund Avenue. I thought that was really kind of counterintuitive from the respect that this is where we'd like to have a protected area, like a historic scenic corridor, and to have it as a receiving area is a bit confusing. So if you could speak to that, appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah,
We'll look into that, Tapi.
it might be a targeted parcel that, that provides that option. But as Jeff said, we'll drill down and take a look at that. I don't have the block and lot in front of me.
Okay, let's go to the virtual. If you're watching the meeting via Zoom, hit the chat function, and then you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Glynis Berry. Two things. I'm wondering if the identity of Riverhead's farming could put an emphasis on sustainability and best practices. We have Cornell and we have some wonderful farms that are already doing some wonderful things. So if we can kind of make this a center of where people come to learn about these best practices, I think it would help in the identity for the future. And the other thing is a fear that I have in many other places, not here yet, and how you do it so you allow some expansion and exploration of product, but also protect the aquifer. In other locations, some farms have been taken over by big corporations that then become a beverage company and really, take the groundwater. And it's happened in a number of places. So I'm just wondering if there can be some safeguards to stop that from happening.
Okay,
That's
well,
it.
Okay, thank you, Glennis. You know what? No. All right, anybody else in virtual? Okay. Is that Joan Sear? I see Joan Seeds. That must be Joan Sear. Joan, is that you?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. I want to say that I'm, as a representative of the Greater Jamesport Civic Association, I'm pleased to see the map on slide 25 includes proposed TDR sending areas south of Main Road in Aquabog, Jamesport, and Laurel. I would like to echo the comments or the questions of my esteemed colleague, Ms. Turshen from the Calverton Civic Association about why the areas, the open space and farmland areas north of Sound Avenue are receiving zones. And I would like the planners working on this to please consider making those sending zones rather than receiving zones. It seems totally inappropriate to have those as receiving zones. So just echoing her comments, I think that's an important thing. We need to preserve our farmland north of Sound Avenue, especially if we're talking about maintaining that as a historic and scenic corridor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joan. Anybody else? Larry Oxman, and then we need to bring it back live. Larry, can you hear us? Unmute yourself.
Yes, I can. Good evening. You know, it's interesting about the talk about Sound Avenue and the corridor. Sound Avenue north of the road has always been a receiving area, which is, I hope that you address that and allow farmland up there to also be a sending area. But looking at some of the slides, it was very interesting to see that 6,400 acres of preserved farmland was through the county purchase of development rights. Yet out of all of that, there was only 313 transfer of development rights. And of that, 163 was used for residential. The 150 balance, are they just certificates that haven't been used? Or I'm curious how much has been used commercially?
Could you repeat that? Larry, could you repeat that?
Sure. The of the 313 TDRs that I guess were purchased from farmland, the slide said that 163 were used for residential purposes. And I guess what's residential? Is that a single family home, multifamily? But if you subtract the 163 from the 313, you have 150. That 150, were those used commercially, or have they not been used? Are they just certificates that are kind of on the shelf? I'm curious about that. I'm curious how many TDRs were actually used. I know of a couple of examples on Route 58, but not many.
Yeah, that would be done through the, yeah, Larry, that would be done through the TDR program, not the PDR program. Once you buy the development rights, they're extinguished, they're not transferred.
That's when the county buys it. That's
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So I again, the number of 6,400 versus 313 certainly shows that the TDR program never worked the way it was intended.
Correct.
I really look forward to revamping that. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is just the agritourism and the vineyards. It seems from the news articles, most people are complaining about the noise that is generated by these types of uses, yet these types of uses have certainly become a large part of our economy. The museums often have amplified sound systems that are local to the actual exhibit, meaning that the sound does not spread beyond the exhibit. And sound is really, it's a wave, just like light. So if you start to think about like the dark skies regulations, what you're doing is that you're regulating where the light waves can go. You can do that with sound. The latest technology, sometimes it's referred to as audio laser, is highly directional speakers that they go in a kind of a much more of a lineal path, and if you step out of that path, you no longer hear the sound. I mean, it really works. Think of like a flashlight at nighttime. If you're in the beam, you get it. If you step out, you're no longer seen. It'd be really cool if Riverhead kind of somehow incorporated this technology into its code. So whereas events where sound was amplified outside, by using highly directional speakers, it stayed on the property and did not filter miles away, which is what you hear.
Yeah, that's a
most of
great
the-
suggestion. I've seen that in other places. We have noise acoustical experts at AKRF, and I will certainly talk to them about that. And it sounds like that would be
Something to look at.
something to contribute to the, to reducing noise emissions in a general way, but, recognizing that the activities that go along with these events is permissible as long as the impacts are contained.
Larry, I'm going to volunteer you. As I mentioned, I don't know if you heard earlier, we're going to be having committee meetings with the Farmland Committee, the Ag Committee, and the TDR Committee. And one of the things that we're going to need some local feedback. You are a realtor. You know land values in the area across the town. I know you're not a farmer. I think you're not a farmer, but you do know land values, and you know what the value of credits are, and we need that kind of knowledge and expertise to help us revisit the whole TDR program. So reach out to me, and I'll let you know when these meetings are going to be held.
Very good. I'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. We have one more person, then we're going to turn it over to Robert. Robert, I haven't forgotten you. One more person in virtual land. You need to unmute yourself and identify yourself.
Hi, Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Tracy.
It's Tracy James, and I apologize if this is redundant, as I have not been able to attend all the meetings. But I was just wondering, is there an economic analysis performed within the comp plan based on the recommended changes in land use, more specifically the impact to potential real property tax revenue?
Well, Larry, are you in the booth? We're getting a lot of feedback. Larry, if you could hear us, we're getting a lot of feedback. Thank you. We're going to talk about the GIS, that's the economics.
Yeah, there's an economic and fiscal assessment that will be done as part of the generic environmental impact statement that's going to evaluate the recommendations. And with fiscal analysis is part of that. I don't want to, prematurely answer your question. We got to look at the details and see how it affects tax rates and rateables.
So the short answer is yes, we will have one done, Tracy, but we're not there yet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. We're going to turn over. Robert, you've been very patient. Come on up.
Robert Skinner, Jamesport. I'm not a farmer. My family's nursery went belly up in 1970. So therefore, I've got an idea, even though I'm just a mere taxpayer, I understand what goes on. On your presentation, goals to support agritourism, I guess that's chart number 22. It kind of dovetailing with what Mr. Oxman just said about the types of constraints that you can put on the businesses that are in these areas and the usages that are contained on the chart. How much local, i.e. Riverhead Town, control is there with that, or is that predominantly the ag and market in the state?
That is a great question, and one that I can just speak from the local level. We face it every day, and when we present something to the planning board, we advise them as to what the state laws are and what our local code says, and we try to find something in between that addresses both, and and also to address what the community concerns are. It's a very difficult process to navigate that.
Okay. So we can't automatically assume that when you go to town hall, they're going to be able to do anything because of what is on the books with the state.
I like to think that there's something in between.
Okay,
Hopefully the glass is half full, we can find some balance.
all right. I appreciate Mr. Carpenter's bringing up initially with Sound Avenue and the widening, et cetera. I'd like to bring up if there's going to be any consideration for a speed limit change to Sound Avenue, that it not be done. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but from my position off of Herrick's Lane onto Sound Avenue, I transit that intersection probably north of 300 times a year. And I can tell you that getting out onto there, if you've got a line of cars coming off the ferry, 17, 18, 19 in a row, you got one guy who's doing 30 miles an hour with Massachusetts plates, of course, and it becomes an absolute nightmare. And I'm not only talking about during pumpkin picking time, I'm talking about 5 in the morning, I'm talking about all kinds of hours I'm there. And when Mr. Murphy, when we had a little discussion the other day and he mentioned Sound Avenue speed limit, my wife and I went, no, please, think about that. Think about what the end game is, think about what the goal is, and think about the people who live in the neighborhoods who are, already just absolutely hamstrung by this. And to take the speed limit down to, say, 35, and then you've got everybody doing 35, so there's never a gap. And if there's never a gap, you can't get out. I like to refer to chart 13 on page 7. Approximately 27% of the respondents felt like expanding agritourism is not needed. Does that mean that 73% are in favor of, or is there a default in that basically says the other 73% don't care?
I think it depends on how we ask the question.
Yes, that's why I'm asking you the
And
question.
we're pointing that out as just sort of to get two sides of the story in terms of the planning and how these respondents felt that this wasn't necessary, but I
What is the answer? Is it 73% think that expanding agritourism is a good idea?
Well, that would match up with the 70% who found farmland preservation and the continuation and growth of the farmland economy as advantageous to the town of Riverhead. So those numbers do align in terms of, it's not 73%, it's not a total, it doesn't get us to 100, but 70% of the surveyed population reinforced their support for the preservation and continuation of farming and the agricultural community.
So it's not an exact you're for or against?
No, it wasn't an exact for. The
That's what
question
I'm saying,
wasn't
because
presented.
the way that is
Yeah.
set up, okay, and I can tell you that 70% of the people that I know are not in favor of what agritainment and agritourism will bring in, okay? We understand what's necessary, okay? And we're willing to live with it, okay, and support it, but to say that you're in favor of more, okay, when you live out where I am, is like, really? Okay, so I just wanted to point that out, the way that question was asked.
Okay, yeah, I would have to go back at the survey form and see how it was
Yeah,
asked.
because again, you get into the, when you get into the next chart or slide that, that brings up noise and traffic, to have that on the same page was just a little, especially with what I have out, with my exposure and the people that I know. So, anyway.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, and like I said, I'd have to look at the survey to see how the question was asked.
Yeah.
To better answer your question.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to come up to the podium? Is there anybody else in the virtual? Larry Oxman? Larry, you there?
I'm here, but I'm done.
Okay, your hand is raised.
Oh, it was a pocket hand raise.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anybody else in the audience this evening? Seeing Takwi is coming up again? No? Okay. Okay. All right, seeing no other hands raised, either virtually or in the audience this evening, thank you all for coming this evening. Barbara Blass, are you coming up? You gotta raise your hand. People can just skip and start walking. I don't
We're
want.
nothing without rules.
Sorry about that, Barbara. I didn't mean to disrespect you. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara Blass, Jamesport. First, I hope nobody takes offense at this, because I am not a farmer, and I'm not I've never been part of
Barbara,
the
you guys
farming.
speak into the microphone,
Not
otherwise
have
Larry gets
been
mad.
part of the farming community, but having been involved in the prior plan, its development and implementation for 5 years, it's hard to imagine that we're talking about farmland and agricultural issues and not have the wisdom and the input of Joe and Lyle here. And I just needed to acknowledge that, because we had a lot of public and spirited discussions, but we also had a lot of private understandings. And I just feel it was a timely, it was an opportune time to just acknowledge
Thank you
their
for that.
input in
That's-
bringing us where we are. So,
They both weighed in very heavily on farmland preservation in the town.
yes, they did. And they were very spirited discussions, as many of you probably know. Okay.
Yes.
But I did want to ask about how you are analyzing and assessing the changes in the TDR program. I'm hoping that at least we're starting with some raw data that has some quantification of the number of available or prime agricultural acreage that's in production, what's not in production, where it is, what zoning use districts they're in, so we quantify how many development rights there may be. It's good to have some data that backs up sort of these notions that we want to see developed concretely, but I think we need that raw information, and I'm sure it's available, but it would be helpful to have that kind of a chart and those numbers.
Digitize the zoning and digitize or put into geographic information system. The land use and the zoning, I need to sit with our technicians.
You gotta speak up.
I need to sit with our, I guess, I need to go through that with.
Now, remember.
But I think we can calculate that relatively, I don't want to speak for them, but relatively easily. Yeah.
And identifying the prime as opposed to non-prime, because we have other things coming down the pike that would be sort of
Prime soils?
soils,
Yep.
that's what I meant, yes.
Yeah, I have to see if we have that layer of
Someone-
soil information.
I'm sure
integrated.
someone,
But
I'm sure the county has it.
if the county has it, we could probably get that, yeah.
and I think that would be helpful. Also, just to, Jefferson, I know you're aware, but the Railroad Avenue Overlay District that was recently adopted is actually a receiving area, and it provides for up to 5 development rights. Each development right translates to 3,000 square feet of floor area. I don't know if that's actually for residential or commercial, it just says floor area, and you could do up to 5 in a project 30,000 square feet or less. 60,000, it's 10 development rights can be transferred for at 3,000 square foot apiece. So it's just something to add to your chart as to.
That's a great receiving location.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all
All
I
right,
have to
thank you,
say.
Barbara.
So one thing I was going to just point out in terms of this edition of the plan is that, I guess the last plan had a 20-year gap, and we heard a lot, not gap, but, here we are 20 years later. What we heard a lot during the outreach was that, the plan needs to be updated. How do we monitor it? So I think, in terms of how successful a TDR program is, I think that kind of information in the plan that we're developing, and in the next step, be available sooner rather than later, so, edits, changes could be made in 2024, 2025, rather than having it, such a big gap in time for update, so.
Welcome, put your name and your hand.
Phil Schmidt, farmer in Riverhead. You should have closed it earlier. I wasn't going to come up, and I just thought I'd make a couple of comments.
Thank you for coming.
Maybe reiterate a little bit what Robbie Carpenter said with the rural corridor. Tread with caution. At one side, you're telling you're going to protect our private property rights, and then that kind of goes the opposite way. And as an example, 2 years ago, we had a 56-acre farm, and we preserved 50 acres of it. The 6 acres that remain, where are they? Frontage on Sound Avenue. So that's, and that if you want a farm stand or anything, most likely that's where you're going to want to put it. And one thing we've discussed at our committee, and I think I can speak for them, is with the TDR, could there be a change? As an example, I know a grower that several years ago now went and got his development rights, his TDR certificates in hand, just a handful of them, wasn't many. And now the land is preserved, and he has nothing to show for it.
Right. He still has the certificates. but-
Is there a way to be able to get these certificates? Because, it's always an essence of time. If it does start to flow a little better, the program, that the builder needs the thing, and he can't, maybe be tied up for a year for the guy to get his
Right.
certificate. So he gets the certificate, and, the land isn't preserved till he sells them. I mean, he has actually had opportunity where somebody wanted to build a couple of houses, and he could have gotten his money.
Right.
I mean, that's something I think that should be looked at.
Yeah, one thing I think should be looked at is the creation of a TDR bank.
Right.
So that the town is the holder of the certificate, so that you get your equity, the farmer gets their equity sooner than later. And then when a developer wants to buy some, they don't have to go looking for them, they can just come to the town. So that's something I think we need to take a look at.
Okay. And I guess the last thing, just real quickly, I mean, agriculture's changing in Riverhead. I don't mean a little, I mean a lot. We've been here, I guess we're only newcomers, 40-something years, but traditional agriculture, shipping tons of product, and I do have a next generation that wants to continue it, and, we've been forced to change. I never wanted to do retail, but we're doing retail, and now we're looking at trying to expand it and trying basically to survive. I mean, don't get me started about a Canadian potato. I don't grow potatoes, but we're in a very, very expensive area to try to continue to grow food to feed people. It's just not feasible here, but on the retail, maybe we can. So just, keep a real open mind to, what you're doing there. And that's all I have.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Last chance. Last chance, talk.
Very brief, Talk Turchin, Calverton Civic. On the TDR topic, earlier it was mentioned, I forgot which speaker it was, said something about it going to be a requirement versus a voluntary. And you're, I think, looking for examples. One example could be if a developer needs a special permit, got to use a TDR, and that can be expanded. But if you were looking for one, that was one. Thank you.
Okay. That concludes tonight's presentation and meeting. Thank you all for coming, both in person and virtually. Keep an eye on, take a look at the town Riverhead Comprehensive Plan Update website. Take a look under what's new, and you will see the announcements when future meetings or when there's a new posting on the website is announced. So keep an eye on that. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm in extension 239. And thank you again.
Thank you, Jeff, and all the participants tonight.
Thank you, Yvette.